So me and my two friends decided to play D&D. We were using the Stars set with pre-made characters and story, as none of us had ever played before. I don't remember races, but I was a wizard. My friend called Beth was a fighter, and the DM we'll call Dan. We were escorting a wagon when another friend entered the room, who we'll call Mary. Mary is an avid D&D player, so of course we told her about it, and invited her to play, even if it's one session. I know. Maybe a strange move, but like I said, we were all rookies. We even invited her to use her current character from her current campaign. Wait, what level was she? Because like if she's level 20, that might be a little weird. She said yes, pulled out her character sheet, a Tabaxi cleric, and described that she would be in the encounter. No, not with the wagon, not even on the road, she was just hanging out on the trees? Okay, fair enough. We keep on going and we get attacked by goblins. The goblins get surprised on us and attack, doing a chunk of damage on me and slightly less on Beth. Can you guess how much they do on Mary? We were trying to fight these goblins, but I don't even remember if I was given a spell sheet. I know I certainly didn't cast any spells that session, and I foolishly tried to just hit them with my stick. We're both getting a little desperate and ask Mary if she's going to help us. She sees no reason to. I don't metagame. It's out of her character.
That's my last healing potion. There are far too many of them. If only there was some extremely experienced hero who could swoop in and save us from this undead menace.
What? Can you swoop in and save us from this undead menace? Oh, no. Why? Ugh, typical noobs don't know the first rule of D&D. It's not what my character would do, so I won't do it.
Well then, why are you here?
I'm not.
What?
What? Yeah, so our first session ended early due to time constraints, but considering I was one hit away from death and the veteran was refusing to help, instead choosing to throw us in the deep end and hoping we'll learn to swim. I don't know. It was not a fun experience, but luckily, I've never been put off of D&D, and I'm planning my own campaign soon. While I like Mary, I deliberately did not invite her to my campaign. Smart man. Also, what's the point of her being there? You play D&D to play D&D. What, you gonna sit in the trees the whole time and just watch? Seems kind of boring, don't you think? This is not really a horror story yet, but if I don't address the issue, it very well might lead to one. For a bit of context, I've been a paid dungeon master at my local community center for the past 3 years, and I've never skipped a session 0 during this time. However, I managed to build a small group of 3 regulars who keep coming back for the next season. That's accordingly 4 campaigns per year for a total of 12 campaigns total, so far at least, and I promise this is relevant. Along with those regulars, I also have new players that have never played D&D and or don't know me and the other players. My session 0s always follow the same schedule. Presentation of other players and myself, presentation of my table rules, along with the consent form, presentation of the homebrew rules I'll be using, presentation of the setting for the campaign, and finally, character creation. Usually, this fits perfectly into a 3-hour-long session 0. Oh my god! That's a long time. My session 0s are probably an hour. I mean, they are 3 hours with all the messing around, playing video games, eating overpriced sushi. You know, all that included, it's 3 hours, but like, you know, I'm assuming you're not doing all that. Now, the problem is that the 3 regulars already know how I run my session 0, to the point where they could do it for me. I see and feel how bored they are of me saying the same things every time we start a new campaign. After presenting ourselves to the newcomers, they kind of check out and start pulling their phones, talk amongst themselves while I run the session 0 for the newcomers. This is not disturbing the session, but I feel kind of bad for them. They understand and respect that this is necessary, but out of respect for their time and money, I would like to make the session 0s relevant for them again. Since they pay the community center for the entire campaign up front, I can't just tell them not to come to session 0, since that would kind of rob them of time they already paid for. And obviously I can't just skip the session 0 because this is necessary for the newcomers. I tried to start with character creation so the regulars can start with that right away, but I usually lose the newcomers, since they rightfully want to jump right into character creation, the fun part. And after the regulars are done with that, they don't have a reason to be there for the rest of the 3 hours. So what should I do? Should I let another Crispy die to save my regulars fun and enjoyment? Hey dude, what the hell?
I mean, he's considering not having one.
But he still hasn't decided yet. I mean, come on, isn't this supposed to be a channel about helping people improve their games? It feels like you're just using them as a sort of way just to lash out your fellow clones, reveling in the drama and the blood.
That's not what this channel's about. We're supposed to be helping people.
You're right. You're right. I should show him the light.
I'm really glad that you see that. I'm really glad. Wait, hey, did you just spare my life because you forgot to reload the gun?
Yep.
There are a few solutions here. I don't know how much control you have over your pricing. Maybe you can have a loyal customer discount and have an abridged online session 0 with the regulars. Alternatively, you might not need to do anything at all. Like I said earlier, during my session 0s with my friends, we're mostly just hanging out, screwing around, playing video games, and also talking about D&D. At the core of it, it's friends hanging out. And you said they go on their phones, but they also talk amongst themselves. I mean, maybe your regulars are having a perfectly good time just hanging out. I think it might be worth asking them if they even want anything changed. Additionally, if they do want something changed, they probably will have a recommendation. I also don't want to leave this merely implied with the bit from earlier, but the session 0 could probably be shortened down from 3 hours. I mean, I don't know what you're doing, but yeah, 3 hours is like, that's a long time, man. I wanted to share a story of mine that still makes me shudder when I think about it, mostly because I'm a people pleaser, and nobody was pleased by how this game turned out. Please know that I am not blameless in this story. I know I made a lot of mistakes. I never DM'd before, and I thought I could handle more than I actually could. Warning here, the story involves slavery, but none of that gross Okay, bro, look, slavery is bad. Like, no matter what! But thanks for the clarification. I mean, thanks. I appreciate it. Me and my co-DM did put our foot down on ERP slavery, at least. It all started with me and a good friend of mine who came up with the idea for a custom homebrew game. It would be tabletop, but it would roll a D10 system and everyone's characters would have a special ability, basically a superpower that would grow in a way unique to them. No two builds would ever be the same, a little over-ambitious for your first game, you might say. And yeah, it was, but I had dreamed up the setting, and it was my baby, my horrible baby that grew up into a monster. We did an informal session 0 before the game started, basically to get to know everyone's characters, lay down plot points that were limits for people, and get an idea of what we want from the campaign. It was clear people wanted to be a heroic party that saved the day and wiped out an evil king. The fact they wanted to be heroic is very important to the story because they were anything but. So the basic premise of the game was that the players were all kidnapped from their homes and forcefully conscripted into the evil king's evil army, rather than the evil king's good, nice army, which he keeps in reserve back at his local Disneyland. And I don't know where I'm going with this joke. I need to shut up. Also, I think the evil army would be at the Disneyland. I mean, seriously, have you been in those lines? People are demonic. This was normal for him, as that was how he got most of his soldiers. About 90% of his army was essentially enslaved, using evil magic. Chief among those was Fina. The first thing that people learned about Fina was that she was under a special version of mind control, which in addition to forcing her to comply with orders, also chipped away her memory and sense of self. It was to the point where she could no longer remember who she was before she was enslaved. The second thing they learned was that Fina was a max level fully statted character. Bro! No! Basically, she was level 20 while they were level 1. No!
Fell victim to one of the classic blunders!
Never make an overpowered DMPC, and also something about Asian land war.
Fina was in charge of judging the new recruits, and her role in the story was to subtly try to help the player characters escape. She was kind and motherly, trying to soften the horrible experience the characters were going through. Basically, she was meant to be a friendly NPC that they would tragically be forced to fight down the line. That's not what happened. Now, part of this is my fault. I was overly attached to Fina, and she was a retooled version of my first D&D character. In fact, though her appearance had massively changed due to the curse, one of the players who was in my first campaign immediately clocked that it was my first player character. I loved Fina. I wanted her to be a character the party cared a lot about, but never in my wildest dreams would I imagine they would treat Fina the way they did. Nobody would trust her, even after she made it clear she was going to help them escape, which was fair. And I figured it was just like a first impression, but if she was ordered to share info, she would. I knew that wouldn't happen, and I couldn't tell the players exactly what they wanted to know. But then the players, specifically 2 of them, got really hostile towards Fina, like incredibly so. They got into a really nasty fight with her. Basically, if you were a good person, you just kill the big bad evil guy. Yeah, that's why you don't make a 20th level don't do that! Man, this character's scarily similar to my favorite character I've ever played in a D&D game, Yumi from the 10th Tomb. There was never even an illusion that she could solve any of the player's problems. In fact, actually caused some of them. Look, I understand the lore of your setting explains why this 20th level player character can't do anything, but her presence colors the player's perceptions, even if those perceptions are false. The idea of 20th level and the mythology of D&D, it's meaningful, and I don't think it's doing you any favors. This escalated. This marked the point where every player became hostile to her, so naturally, I did damage control, trying to get us back on track, but the majority opinion of the group was that Fina, a literal slave, was as bad as the man who enslaved her and deserved equal treatment, all because she could not act against him due to her curse. Seeing this wasn't gonna work, I just moved her to be less important, arranged the escape in a new way, and the rest of the campaign goes on. Now this is where we started to have problems with one of the players. See, basically how the game worked was that everyone got normal level ups and personalized ones. The personalized one was everyone's special ability, and that was the realm of my co-DM. I did plot, she handled custom mechanics. We would talk to each player and make something special for them based on character development and their character's personality. Two characters could start with the same special gift. Fire control basically, but might develop into differently based on who they are as people. That was entirely based on this custom system, except we had one player who I'll call Power Gamer who wanted his character to have the best skills in every field, the best defense, the best offense, and he threw fits if we wouldn't allow that. During the final level up, he tried to get the same capstone as a player who had been working up that specific skill the entire game, and then temporarily blocked my co-DM when she said no. What's the end game there?
You didn't give me unlimited power, so I will never speak with you again! Huh. He blocked all earthly communication with me. I shall now make him a god in response. Haha! Now with unlimited power, my conquest will be eternal! My plan will...
We didn't kick him out largely because Power Gamer was one of the two players who were curbing the murder hobo nature of the party as a whole. Oh, and about that murder hobo nature, towards the end of the game, they ran into the rebellion against the evil king. It was split into two factions, one that wanted to pardon those who were enslaved, and one that thought they should be executed alongside the king. Guess which side the majority of the players sided with? 4 of our 6 party members wanted to side with the second faction, and we had to make them a little less openly bloodthirsty to make the other 2 players more comfortable. And even then, one of them left, saying the game was getting too dark, and I don't blame them. The plot was never meant to get this dark, but it kept getting darker and darker due to player decisions. Maybe I should have stepped in, but I hate railroady DMs. As it was, I gave a lot of signs this was the wrong choice. To be clear, they 100% knew that the people they had just agreed to execute were slaves, forced to commit atrocities against their will. They just didn't care. They liked this faction that wanted to execute the evil king instead of strip him of his powers and give him life imprisonment. Hey, sometimes you just need the Kratos approach, you know? This approach works great! Their encounter was designed so that they could negotiate a compromise between the two sides, but they just decided to side with one over the other. We did make it to the end. Me and my co-DM were determined to make this happen. We did our best to make happy endings out of the player character's choices, but it was overall a really bad experience for me. I know I was too much of a pushover, 6 players, a little too much for my game. I think I should have implemented an alignment system, but we didn't because my co-DM thinks alignments are too restrictive. So I could at least point out when the heroes aren't being heroic, because till the end, they thought themselves as heroes, even as they slaughtered innocent people. I don't know, maybe they should have just played Warhammer 40k instead. I already talked about the NPC stuff, but it looks like these just aren't the right players with your game. There are so many brand new DM mistakes in here in general, but that is the biggest one. A lot of new DMs don't realize they need to find the right people before they even hit play. And these are not the right players. They're clearly more interested in, like you said, something more akin to Warhammer or the Dark Urge. Based on your account, they also probably have a problem with some media literacy. And you know what? I know that can be frustrating, but you can't force them to understand your narrative. Frankly, I would not have fun having these people in my games, but I construct my session zeros so I can figure that out from the get-go. I ask what they want and also tell them what I want out of the campaign, which is honestly, usually, a story of heroism. Also, and I say this with all the kindness in the world, unless you're some game designing savant, you have no business making a brand new tabletop role-playing game for your first tabletop role-playing game ever. Game design is frickin' hard. Being a new DM is hard, and I don't think everything you did here did yourself any favors. But of course, this was your first time. You got plenty of chances to get better. We all start out as noobs. It's all good. Joining a new campaign as a player after being a forever DM was refreshing for me. Playing as my original character for my first ever campaign was nostalgic as well. This was my first paid game on Roll20. I had previously resisted playing paid games, but this time I decided to give it a try. Friends have been suggesting it before, that I should become a paid DM, but I've shied away from the idea due to my imposter syndrome. However, over a long weekend, I joined a campaign for $10 per game. After comparing prices, I found this to be the cheapest option, so let the games begin. In the first week, I loved the setup and organization the DM had. The group consists of Cleric, a Warlock, and 2 Barbarians, myself being one of them. We started the game in a desert with a fetch quest. The first game was fun, but felt like something was missing afterwards. The second game was just as enjoyable, but I still felt like it was lacking. After the third game, I figured out what the issue was. The DM was not talking much. He was very concise, had very few roleplay moments with NPCs. In my mind's eye, the characters were in a desert, but it felt empty due to the lack of environmental details. Yep, Minecraft desert. Just super flat world, woo! The feeling of being pulled out of immersion also constantly gave me whiplash. There were times where players and the DM wouldn't talk for about 3 minutes or so. Awkward silence became common as each player tried to answer simple questions to move the game forward, only to receive cryptic answers to simple yes or no responses without any additional details or foreshadowing. The game cycle of skill checks, being mainly perception survival, was also becoming tedious. I started feeling burnt out, but then we had a series of missing games and scheduling conflicts, so we took some time apart. I didn't want to be that guy who backseat drives because I'm a DM myself, but people were falling asleep on the Discord. The DM was aware of our boredom, but battles continued, with us just rolling to hit and rolling to take damage, with very little story in between to explain what was happening.
This adventure is going to be more open than anything you've ever experienced. Oh my god, that sounds amazing. Yes, there will be dozens of quests for you to choose from. Okay, so can I go to the quest board to see what we can choose from? Oh, well, there's a fetch quest for some rat tails. Okay, that seems kind of boring. I mean, well, there is the exclusive premium quest, though that is randomly rolled. Ooh, premium. Okay, that sounds awesome. All right, let's go with that. Ah, a lengthy escort quest where the NPC always walks slower than you and there's nothing you can do about it. Oh, can I do a quest of my own? What's that? Yeah, can I do a seppuku quest? Well, you see, if you want to do that, you're going to need to do a massive prerequisite, which involves a lot of resource gathering.
I understand the saying, you get what you pay for, but this is $10 D&D. I couldn't in good consciousness even charge people in general for this. To get paid for that lack of preparation, especially coming from a module. Yo, what module is this? Alright, I gotta know so I can stay away. Also, so I can make fun of something other than Horror the Dragon Queen. Yeah, I find this just generally insulting. I don't know what travel rules he is using, but it felt like he wanted us to feel like we were in an awkward car ride without the option to turn the damn radio. During some games, I had to open up a YouTube tab to listen to epic music tracks just to keep me interested in the combat encounters. Sandboxes can be great, but without a clear aim or side quest, I felt like that meme with the guy poking at the campaign hoping for something cool to happen. During downtime, I shared my flaws, bonds, ideals, try to get something going, but the DM gave me nothing. The other players shared small things about themselves too, but played in a reserved manner, wanting the other characters to figure them out over time. I realized that this campaign was not going to be what I hoped for the lack of description and awkward silence as they just continued. I think the DM is a nice guy and knows the rules well, but I've learned that to be a good DM in any game, you need to shine the spotlight on different players and remind them why they're here playing. Dang well said. Sandbox games can be great, but my god, so many people do them wrong. It's especially obnoxious because so many of these people espouse the superiority of the sandbox. Now, it is the purest essence of the tabletop game. But then they just have the most boring, bland, directionless sandbox you could possibly imagine, and then they blame the players for it. There is truly nothing for the players to do here. Their backstories don't matter if they're all stuck in a desert. A sandbox is about the freedom to make any sort of choices, but those choices need to have impact. The places you go, the quests you go on, they still need to be fun. The freedom to choose 12 boring quests is still gonna be boring. I got into D&D a couple years ago thanks to my older sister, but I really wanted to give it a go since I never really got to play outside of that introduction session run by her. So last year, I finally managed to find an online group to play with, and the players go as follows. Myself as the half-elven druid, Anna as the tiefling rogue, DM is the problem. There were 2 other players in the campaign, and due to personal reasons, they usually couldn't make sessions, so it was mostly just me and Anna. Now, the DM had a few problems already going into it, unfortunately. A very edgy sense of humor, and loved making very uncomfortable jokes, especially about guns and sexual stuff. I am also Arrow Ace, though Anna was not. Bro, I don't think you need to be Arrow Ace to find that stuff weird. Like, have you tried listening to Sneeko talk for more than 5 minutes? It's weird! The DM had a huge knack for oversharing about personal problems too, which would generally be fine, except for the fact we were all literal strangers who knew each other for about 3 months, and it started pretty early, but we thought, whatever, he seems harmless, and just never really said anything about it since we wanted to play D&D. This problem was also a reason why we never fully confronted the DM about some of the things we took issue with, since to us it felt like we were trying to put him down. When it comes to his actual DMing, we were unsure if he knew what was going on in his own story. The best way to describe what was going on was essentially that he was setting up a storyline for us to follow, then just gave us an infinite amount of downtime where we did absolutely nothing. We would try to find hints or clues leading to the big bad evil guy that we had met the first couple sessions at towns we encountered, but interactions would just go like,
Hello, random town person. Have you seen or heard of this dastardly villain?
oh yeah, I saw him the other day, he was buying Dippin' Dots. Yo, those are still around?
Okay, never mind. I'm getting distracted. Could you tell us anything more of this man, or lead us to anyone who could tell us anything more about this man? Nope. Is the dastardly villain still here? No. Great.
And then we'd move on, and have the exact same interactions with anyone else we could find in every single town. We really did try and get the story moving, but he never seemed to budge, and when we asked, he'd just brush it off, but still, we kept trudging along since we really wanted to give this a chance. Now, to quickly understand why this next part was kind of the breaking point, I need to explain a few things about the DM's rules and our characters. In the DM's world, ages worked differently, so it took longer for certain characters to reach full adulthood, and this included half-elves and tieflings. My character was 19, and he wouldn't be legally an adult until he was 30. He also was supposed to act very childish and innocent. Anna was in her mid-40s, which was a young adult for a tiefling. She was also a lesbian. So my guy was canonically a minor in this world. Wow, nothing bad ever comes from this mentality.
She's not actually an 8-year-old, she's actually a 4 million year old demon.
Different species aging differently can be done absolutely normally. But this is a horror story, man, come on. At some point in the game, we managed to run to my character's stepmother, who practically raised him all her life. I quickly learned I should have followed up with the DM before we met her and gave him a rundown of what the stepmom was like, because it was a mess. As soon as we started talking to her, my stepmom immediately started asking if we were a couple, the minor and the lesbian. We told her this wasn't the case, but throughout the next couple sessions we were in with her, the whole couple thing got weirder. She kept telling us things like, oh, you need to give me grandchildren sooner or later. Do you want a private room together? Don't worry, I won't bother you, wink. Why don't you and your girlfriend have a little date and have some fun, wink, wink. Doesn't matter how much we protested both in and out of character, it did not stop. Honestly, I think it was because we didn't seem like we were doing it seriously enough to the DM. He thought everything was fine and the whole thing was a funny bit, while we were deeply uncomfortable. Anna and I kept playing a couple more weeks after that encounter, but we could never really get into it anymore. The whole thing just felt weirder than usual, and we weren't enjoying it. Eventually, after the last couple sessions we played, Anna just straight up quit the campaign. Wonder why? And the whole thing fizzled out. But thankfully, That's just the gist of what happened. Of course, there were many smaller events in between to add to our frustrations, but that would make this way too long. Anne and I still play together in a new group where she's the DM and where everything is much more comfortable and gets along. Yeah, some people just don't get the hint when their sense of humor is not landing. There's no nice way to say this, but some of y'all are not as funny as you think you are. This is so true when you're playing with strangers. I mean, I'm not saying you should be afraid of joking ever, but just have some self-awareness of what's funny with your friends and what lands with strangers. The amount of ballsy people on mic, and like LFG for example, who think that generic racist joke number 50 is the funniest ball buster ever. Dude, I've heard it all before, trust. This dude's edgy sense of humor might work with his friends and his fellow 12-year-olds, but not with everyone else. Hey, that's a wrap. If you guys enjoyed, then you might enjoy our 10th Tomb actual play. Been a while since I've shouted that out. It's a real fun adventure. It's linked in the cards. But before you go, please do leave a like on this one and subscribe to Crispy's Tavern so you don't miss any of our content when it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment, not the stepmom, to let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to us. There's an email down in the description down below. Send your stories our way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.
What?